Hello everyone. In today's video I bring you a shocking and impossible to ignore story. We'll meet Selah Whitmore, a nurse who died for 10 minutes and 25 seconds and was taken to a spiritual realm where she had a direct encounter with Jesus Christ. There he revealed frightening truths about the future of humanity, including the rise of the Antichrist, the great deception that is already underway, and the persecution that is to come. But what she saw will change everything you think about the world. So before we begin, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now get ready, because this revelation will shake your certainties. My name is Selah Whitmore. Before that night, I was just another ordinary person, going about my daily life without worrying about the mysteries of eternity. I wasn't an unbeliever, but I didn't really go into depth either. I went to church every now and then, said quick prayers when I needed to, but I had never felt anything truly supernatural. That has changed. The night I died was no ordinary night. It was not just a traumatic event or a moment of biological weakness. It was a calling so real that it tore me from this world and threw me into the unknown. What I am about to tell you is not a delusion, a dream, or an exaggerated interpretation of a medical experiment. What happened to me was real. In the days that followed my return, I struggled with this truth. I wanted to believe that it had all been just the effect of grief, a game of my subconscious. But the memory remained too clear, too vivid, to be reduced to a hallucination. I saw it, I heard it, I felt it. But telling this is not easy. Have you ever tried to explain colors to someone who was born blind? Have you ever tried to describe a melody to someone who has never heard the sound? This is how I feel when I try to find words for what happened to me. I know there will be skeptics. I know some will call me a lunatic, that some will say it was all a game of the brain failing. I don't blame anyone who thinks that way. If I hadn't experienced it, I might not believe it either. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I saw it, and now I know. I know there is a kingdom beyond this world. I know there is a greater purpose. I know there is an unseen war going on all around us. I know there is a deception spreading like a fog, blinding the eyes of many. And I know time is running out. Jesus brought me back for a reason, to warn, to prepare those who will listen, to tell the truth before it's too late. I saw what was coming. I saw what was about to unfold before us, and what is coming will change everything. In the months leading up to that night, something inside me began to change. At first, it was just a slight discomfort, as if something was out of place, wrong, but invisible. I went about my normal routine, long shifts at the hospital, trips to the grocery store, quick calls to my younger sister, but the feeling that something was about to happen grew stronger with each passing day. I began to have a restless sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, with a feeling I couldn't describe. My heart was beating fast, as if something was calling me, something I couldn't see but knew was there. It was a silent, insistent call, impossible to ignore. Then came the dreams. At first, they were just fleeting images, a city shrouded in darkness, soulless eyes watching me from the crowd, symbols I didn't understand. Over time, the dreams became more vivid. I heard voices murmuring things I couldn't understand. I saw shadows moving, blending with the artificial light of the streets, always just outside my field of vision. And in the midst of all this, a voice began to emerge. "Selah, get ready." It was a whisper at first, but every time I tried to ignore it, it came back louder, more urgent. At the hospital, I began to notice that the people around me were different. Patients who had previously been friendly began to get irritable for no reason. Coworkers avoided eye contact. Some seemed distant, as if their minds were elsewhere. Once, an elderly patient held my hand tightly and whispered, "I'm sorry. You see it too, don't you? Something is coming." I was frozen. At the supermarket, I noticed strangers staring at me, not in an ostentatious way, but with that long, empty look as if they knew something I didn't. And then there was that day, which marked my certainty that something big was about to happen. I was in the hospital parking lot, about to get into my car when a man dressed in an impeccable suit pulled up next to me. His face was ordinary, but his eyes, they had no sparkle. He smiled at me, but the smile had no warmth, no humanity. "You feel it, don't you?" he said casually, as if we were talking about the weather. My throat went dry. "I feel what?" He tilted his head, still smiling. "The call." Then, without further ado, he walked away and disappeared into the crowd. It was the first time I admitted to myself something was happening, something I didn't understand, something that was already waiting for me. The night it happened, I was exhausted. It had been a long day at the hospital, emergency rooms, patients fussing, machines beeping nonstop. My body ached from pacing, and my head throbbed with exhaustion. All I wanted to do was go home, take a hot shower, and fall asleep in bed. The parking lot was nearly empty when I left the hospital. The yellow lights cast distorted shadows on the concrete floor. The sound of my own footsteps echoed in the open space, and a cool breeze cut through the night. That's when I heard it. Footsteps behind me. My heart raced and I quickened my pace. My car was just a few feet away, but before I could reach it, something pulled me brutally back. I fell, hard, my body slamming against the hard ground. The shock of the fall knocked the wind out of me, and for an instant, everything went blurry. Lights flashing, the smell of gasoline in the air, voices murmuring. And then the pain began. The first kick came in the ribs, eliciting an involuntary groan from me. The second in the head made everything spin. There were 3 of them. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I felt it. The hate in every hit. It was not a common robbery. They didn't ask for money. They didn't try to take anything. They wanted to hurt me. My mind screamed to react, but my body no longer obeyed. Each impact made reality dissolve a little more. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, and then everything stopped. The pain disappeared. The chill of the night turned into a gentle warmth, and the sound of angry voices faded away like a distant echo. That was when I realized I was out of my body. Somehow I could see everything from above. My body lay motionless, surrounded by the attackers who now looked like shapeless figures. Time became strange, as if it were stuck between seconds stretched out indefinitely. It was then that the light appeared. It didn't come as a sudden flash, but as a growing presence, something I felt before I even saw it. A living, intense light that didn't hurt the eyes. It seemed to pulse, to breathe, to carry a deep, unfathomable knowledge. It was at that moment that I realized something much bigger was happening. And then I heard the voice. "Selah, come." It was just a whisper, but it resounded inside me like thunder. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that my journey was just beginning. The light enveloped me in a way that human words cannot describe. It wasn't just brightness, it wasn't just warmth, it was conscience. I felt like I was being embraced, absorbed by something infinitely greater than myself. The fear disappeared, as if it had never existed. The pain, the memories of my body lying in the parking lot, the sound of the blows that had previously echoed in my ear, everything is gone. I was floating, or rather was taken. There was no gravity there, there was no up or down, just that pulsating, living light around me. Slowly, my vision began to adjust, and I realized that I was passing through a space unlike anything I had ever seen before. Time did not exist there. There was no past, present, or future. Everything was now. Every particle of light around me seemed to contain knowledge, wisdom, love. These weren't just colors vibrating in space, they were thoughts, they were truths. I was immersed in something much greater than my understanding could reach. And then I heard it again. Selah. It was a voice that did not come from outside but from within. It was a voice that carried all the power of the universe, but at the same time all the love that could exist. I turned around, and he was there. Jesus. There was no doubt, none. I had never seen him before, but I knew. He was not like the images I had seen in paintings or movies. He was light and fire and truth and love all at once. Your presence filled every part of my being. His eyes. I will never forget those eyes. They were like living flames, but they didn't burn. They revealed. I was cleaning up. Before him, everything I was exposed. Every mistake, every selfish thought, every moment of doubt. But at the same time, I felt completely accepted. I fell to my knees. Not because I thought about doing so, but because it was the only possible reaction before him. Get up, Selah. His voice was soft but unquestionable. It was command and invitation at the same time. I stood up, trembling. He looked at me with infinite seriousness and then said, "You were brought here to see and witness. What I will show you will change everything." And then the space around us began to change. And I saw. The light around us began to spin, as if space itself was shaping itself. I felt a pull as if I was being carried forward without moving a muscle. Suddenly, I was no longer there. I was looking at the earth. But it wasn't Earth as we know it. It was like I was seeing two realities at the same time. The physical world and something much deeper, hidden. First, I saw the cities shining, large metropolises pulsating with life. But behind this facade, a dense darkness crept like black smoke, infiltrating buildings, streets, people. The world was being prepared for something. And then he showed me the leader. He was a man, young, charismatic, with a serene appearance and a sweet voice. He spoke to the crowds with a confidence that was impossible to ignore. He promised peace, prosperity, and unity. His image appeared on huge screens around the world, and people, they worshipped him. They smiled, applauded, celebrated his words. But then Jesus showed me what was behind it. Behind that impeccable figure there was something monstrous, something I couldn't fully define, but that made my soul tremble. It was pure darkness, a void of all that is good, a hatred of God in its most absolute form. He will deceive many, Selah. Jesus' voice was filled with sorrow. I saw governments handing over power to him voluntarily. We religious leaders bowing, accepting his words as if they came from God himself. I saw multitudes celebrating the arrival of a new era, but it was all a lie. And then I saw what happened with those who did not bow. First, they were called intolerant, fanatics, extremists. They were ridiculed, excluded. Then their restrictions, they could no longer buy, sell, work. And then came the arrests, the tortures, the deaths. I saw empty churches transformed into museums of a dead faith. I saw Bibles burned in public squares. I saw families separated, children torn from their parents' arms because rejected the new system. They will think they are doing the world a good thing by persecuting mine. My heart sank. But there is a remnant. And then Jesus showed me something that filled me with hope. Had small hidden groups, gathered in simple places, sometimes even underground. They prayed, read the word, strengthened each other. Their faces were marked by suffering, but their eyes shone with true faith. They will not give in, they will be ready. And then the view changed again. Jesus showed me something even scarier. The scene around us dissolved, and suddenly I was faced with something that made me shiver to my core. The world had changed. It wasn't just the influence of a deceitful leader. There was a system built to control absolutely everything and everyone. I saw entire interconnected networks, a stream of information being collected and analyzed in real time. People were completely immersed in this new system, their lives depending entirely on technology. Their eyes, always focused on screens that shone with promises of safety and comfort, did not notice the invisible chains that held them back. "The world believes it is freer than ever before," Jesus said, his voice thick with sadness. But this freedom was a lie. Had a new global financial system. There was no more physical money. Every purchase, every transaction, every movement was recorded and monitored. To do anything, it was necessary to have a brand, a code, an identification that linked them completely to the system. I saw people trying to resist, trying to live outside of that control, but they were excluded, blocked, invisible to the world. Without this identification, they could not buy food, pay bills, rent a house, or travel. And then Jesus showed me the worst. The system was not only external, he was being implanted within people. I saw huge lines of people receiving an invisible seal, something that connected them completely to this new global order. It was heralded as a revolutionary advance, as something that would make life simpler, safer, more efficient. But behind that, it was a prison. A group of people refused. I saw men and women being persecuted as criminals for not accepting the mark. They were hunted, dragged to re-education centers, forced to choose between survival and their faith. And those who resisted to the end were executed. The chase was fast and brutal. It was no longer something hidden. It was open. It was accepted. They will say it is for the good of humanity, Jesus continued. They will say that those who resist are enemies of peace. But you have seen the truth, Selah, you must warn them. My heart was beating wildly. I saw an entire world plunging into total control, and nobody noticed. But all is not lost. Jesus raised his hand, and in an instant the vision changed. Now I saw something different, something that rekindled a flame within me. One unexpected movement was emerging. The scene before me changed again. After seeing the advance of absolute control and merciless persecution, Jesus showed me something nobody expected. We young people rising up, rejecting the system, refusing the lies. They did not accept diluted doctrines. They did not conform to a lukewarm faith. I saw them gathered in unlikely places, abandoned buildings, dense forests, dark caves. But they had something the world no longer had, a burning fire within them. They were not interested in empty religions or meaningless rituals. They cried out to God with all their hearts, and I felt the sky move in response to them. I saw healings happening, miracles manifesting in the midst of the chase. I saw faith that was not supported by human structures, but by something infinitely greater. They were despised, discredited, marginalized, Jesus said. But I know them. I am raising them up. They were few compared to the multitude who followed the system blindly. But their strength did not come from numbers, but from the Holy Spirit. We homes being opened in secret, offering refuge to the persecuted. I saw messages being transmitted in a hidden manner, ensuring that the truth continued to be spread. I saw prayers being offered with tears and cries, and heaven responding with power. While the world hates you, I strengthen you. The persecution against these young people was fierce, but the more they were attacked, the more they multiplied. I saw armed guards raiding meetings, destroying everything they could. But even with arrests and executions, they didn't stop. They didn't just talk about faith. They lived the faith. And then the view changed again. We armies gathering, preparing for a final confrontation. I saw nations joining forces, deceived by spirits working behind the scenes. They believed they were fighting for something just, but they were going against God without realizing it. They will rise up against me, Jesus said, and his voice sounded like thunder. The Antichrist and his false prophet gathered followers. The darkness seemed to be winning. But then the sky opened up, and I saw Jesus coming back. And this time, he didn't come as a lamb. He came as warrior king. The vision before me expanded, and I saw the sky opening up as if an invisible curtain had been torn from end to end. The whole world stopped. Time seemed frozen, and all eyes turned upwards. The light that appeared was unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't just brilliance. It was pure glory. absolute power. It was as it was. The universe itself recognized the one who was coming. And then Jesus appeared. But he was no longer the plainly dressed man who walked among the disciples. He was riding a white horse. His clothes shone with an impossible brightness, and his gaze was like living fire. He did not come to preach. He came to reign. The armies of the earth gathered against him as if they still had a chance. Armed men, nations united under the Antichrist, advanced technologies, all ready to challenge the creator of the universe. "They think they can fight me," Jesus said, and his voice sounded like thunder echoing throughout existence. The forces of darkness, they did not run away, they did not hide, but advanced arrogantly. The Antichrist was among them, raising his voice with empty promises, declaring that he would win. I saw crowds that they worshipped him, blind until the last moment. But then Jesus just spoke. A single word came out of his mouth, and everything he finished. The armies crumbled like dust in the wind. The Antichrist and his false prophet were pulled out of the crowd and launched into the lake of fire without warning, without judgment, without delay. The truth imposed itself like thunder, and the lie was crushed in an instant. The whole world trembled. The sun has gone dark. What remains of the old system collapsed. And then real peace has begun. We, the kingdom of God, being established. I saw the earth being restored. I saw a world no fear, no oppression, no corruption. I saw people finally books. "Behold, I make all things new," Jesus declared. And I knew deep down in my being that the war was over. But then I was called back. "Selah, time is short. Go back and prepare them." Before I could say anything, before I could even process the enormity of what I had witnessed, I was pulled back hard. The light disappeared. The heat disappeared. And I woke up. The shock of returning was like being torn from a vivid dream and thrown brutally back to reality. My body felt stiff, as if I had been frozen and suddenly thawed. The first sound I heard was the accelerated beeping of the machines around me. I was in a hospital bed surrounded by faces that seemed to not believe what they were seeing. Doctors, nurses, all paralyzed. Their expressions oscillated between relief and sheer astonishment. A woman in a white lab coat, who I later learned was Dr. Naomi Calloway, looked at the heart monitor, then at me, then back at the monitor, as if he couldn't trust what his own eyes were recording. That's not possible. My breathing was heavy, and my limbs felt as heavy as lead. I had returned to my body, but I was no longer the same. Everything I had seen, heard, felt on the other side was still there, clearing. My mind. I looked at my own hands as if they were something foreign, as if they were no longer mine. My heart raced. How was I alive? At that moment, Elijah Foster, my friend and pastor, ran into the room. His expression was that of someone who already knew something extraordinary had happened, but still he was visibly shaken. "Selah," he said almost breathlessly. You died. Your heart stopped for over 10 minutes. There is no explanation for you being here now, none. But I knew. I knew exactly because had returned. Jesus' voice still echoed within me. "Get them ready, time is short." The feeling was as if an immense weight had been placed on my shoulders, but it was not a weight of despair. It was a calling. The doctors ran every test they could. They checked my brain, my heart, my breathing. They discussed it with each other, exchanging confused looks, searching for some logical answer. There wasn't. My body must have been damaged by the brutal blows, by the time without oxygen, but there were no after effects, nothing. And then came the inevitable question. "Selah, Elijah," came closer, holding my hand. "What happened to you?" I closed my eyes, still feeling the presence of heaven within me. I saw. And for the first time I understood the true weight of the words that were to follow. I saw what was coming. The next few days were a whirlwind. My body was alive, but my mind was still stuck in eternity. I tried to get used to just being back to breathing, to feeling the weight of the physical world around me. But at the same time, everything felt different. The colors seemed duller, the sounds more muffled. The real world seemed less real than what I had seen on the other side. Elijah stayed by my side the whole time, asking questions that I still didn't know how to answer. The doctor, Dr. Naomi Calloway, also kept coming back to my room, as if trying to find some kind of scientific explanation for what had happened to me. But something was different about her. On the third day after my resurrection, she sat beside me and hesitated before speaking. "I am a woman of science," she began, choosing her words carefully. "I don't believe in miracles. But you should be dead. Or at the very least have irreversible brain damage." I just watched her waiting. She swallowed hard. For the first time, she looked scared. "Salah, while your heart was stopped, were you aware of what was happening?" Looking at her, I realized that she wanted to believe, but something inside her still fought against it. I saw what was coming. My own voice sounded strange to me, as if it was no longer the same person speaking. "And you feel it too, don't you? You know something is wrong in the world." The doctor paled. Her eyes widened a little, as if she knew exactly what I was talking about but was afraid to admit it. She didn't answer. She just got up and left the room. It was at that moment that I realized something essential. I couldn't tell this story to just anyone. Testify only to those who are ready to listen. Jesus' words echoed within me, and then the question I had been trying to avoid finally imposed itself. What should I do now? The answer came as clear as the blue sky of a cloudless morning. I should to warn. I should prepare those who had ears to hear. But that meant I would have to face something even more dangerous than death. The world would not accept what I had to say. And worse, there would be those who would try to silence me. In the days following my recovery, I noticed something strange. My very existence seemed like a nuisance to some people. It wasn't just curious looks or whispers from those who heard about my case at the hospital. There was a real resistance, almost a hostility to what I might say. At the hospital, the doctors avoided mentioning my miracle. It was as if they were afraid to admit that something inexplicable had happened. I saw it in their eyes, the conflict, the refusal to accept that maybe there was something beyond science. Even Elijah, who believed in me from the very beginning, was tense. "You need to be careful," he told me one night as we sat on the porch of his house. "What you saw is not something people will accept easily. You know that, don't you?" I knew it, but there was no going back. The world needs to know. To answer, people need to be prepared. He rubbed his face with his hands and sighed. It was the weight of truth. And then the first threats began. At first, they were subtle. My phone would ring, and when I answered, there would be no one on the other end. Just heavy, cold, empty breathing. Anonymous messages would arrive in my email with cryptic phrases like "stop while you can" or "don't ruin the plan." I ignored it. But then something worse happened. One night, as I was driving home, I noticed a car following mine. No matter which path I took, he was always there. My mind screamed at me not to panic. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe it was just someone going the same way as me. But then the car lights flashed in a strange way, like a warning. That's when I knew. They were watching me. I parked in front of my house, but I didn't get out of the car right away. I looked in the rearview mirror, feeling my heart beat like a drum. The other vehicle stopped a few meters behind. Time passed slowly. Then their car door opened. A man came out. He didn't say anything, didn't make any aggressive gestures. He just stood there looking at me, as if he knew something I didn't. My breath caught in my throat. I could get out of the car, I could face him. I could ask him what he wanted. But something told me that this was just the beginning. Something told me that it wouldn't be easy to share the truth, and that the battle had already begun. That night, I sat in the car for what seemed like an eternity. The man standing a few feet away didn't move, just stared at me. It was a heavy, dense presence, as if it carried something beyond a simple physical threat. Every part of my being told me not to go out, not to expose myself. But at the same time, a fire began to grow inside me. If you're afraid, they've already won. The voice came from within, strong and firm. I knew who it was from. I took a deep breath and opened the car door. The man did not move. He just tilted his head slightly as if he was analyzing my reaction. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit that contrasted with the dim lighting of the street. His eyes, they had no light. It wasn't just coldness, it was empty. I took a step forward. My heart was pounding, but my determination was greater. "What do you want?" My voice came out steady, without a tremor. The man smiled, a smile without soul, without joy. "Selah Whitmore," he said my name like it was a sentence. I didn't answer. "You should forget it." My skin crawled. "Forget what?" "What did you see?" My stomach turned. They knew. "It's not real," he continued. "It's just a delusion of your mind. But if you persist, if you try to spread this lie, there will be consequences." My body tensed. I knew this was coming. The world does not want the truth. The world rejects the truth. I looked him straight in the eyes. "What if it's real?" My voice came out stronger than I expected. "What if that's exactly what people need to hear?" His smile disappeared. "The mask has fallen. Then you choose the wrong path." Without further ado, he turned around, walked calmly to the car, and got in. The engine roared into the night and the vehicle disappeared into the darkness. I stood there feeling the weight of that interaction. They were warning me. They wanted to silence me. But now I knew, more than ever, that I could not remain silent. I returned home, my hands still shaking. I locked myself in my room and knelt on the floor. Jesus, what do I do? The silence was absolute for a moment. But then a deep peace descended upon me, the same peace I felt in his presence. And then, the words came clear as day. "You already know." And I knew. I needed to speak. It didn't matter the cost. Why time was short. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.